complained at the time to the Building Society. I complained at the time through my lawyers to the Sunday Times. I wanted an apology from them about what happened. But I did not know at this time.
Why didn't you complain to the police?
I did not know at this time that they had hired criminal elements to do this. I did not know at this time about their links with the criminal fraternity. I've only found out as a result of the investigations that have been done, particularly by The Guardian, but by you and by many other people. I've only found out the links between the Sunday Times and what I would call elements of the criminal underworld who were being paid while known criminals to do work that was, if you like, the most disgusting of work, not against me only, but against people who were completely defenceless.
Hacking and blagging is illegal. Do you wish you'd complained to the police?
I think the issue then was who had done this. And the issue now is that we've got a huge amount of information that has been brought to me, even since I was in government, that shows the links between the Sunday Times and known criminals, but equally the links between the News International organisation and known criminals. And that is information I did not have at the time, and it's information that I could not base any complaint upon because I had no idea about who was doing this.
How receptive were News International? You obviously had the ability to pick up a phone and talk to people, senior executives there. What did they say when you said, what are you doing? Why are you accessing my private information?
Well, when I talked to the editor of the Sunday Times and said that this was completely out of order, that the story was completely inaccurate, he distorted my conversation and actually used it in the newspaper. There was no support going to come from the editor of the Sunday Times in dealing with the indiscipline and the practices of his own reporters. So this was a culture in both the Sunday Times and in other newspapers and News International where they really exploited people. People particularly, I'm not talking so much about me, you know, I'm talking about people who were at rock bottom. And rock bottom was the rock upon which the Sunday Times founded their reputation, and other newspapers in News International founded their reputation for purely commercial gain and in some cases to abuse political power.
A question I have to ask. You've said that and made those allegations, but during your time in government, both as Chancellor and Prime Minister, you courted News International. Is it true to say that you had to court them because they were so important, they were vote winners for you? And isn't this at the very heart of what's gone wrong here?
When the record of my time as Prime Minister is looked at, and all the papers will be there for people to see, they will show that we stood up to News International, that we refused to support their commercial ambitions when we thought they were against the public interest, that we did not allow them to take decisions or allow them to pursue actions which were purely in their commercial interest but against the public interest. And I think people will find it is partly because we stood up to News International and partly because we refused to go along with some of their commercial proposals that were purely in the interests of their company, that News International did not find that they could support a Labour Party at the last election.
Can you give me 3 instances where Rupert Murdoch or News International tried to influence you on decision making, or you felt that pressure was being put on you whilst you were in public office?
I think it will be pretty clear when the record is examined that the News International had an agenda about the BBC, they had an agenda to neuter Ofcom, the regulatory organisation, and they had an agenda also in relation to the pursuit of their own commercial interests. And on each of these 3 issues, News International made proposals, they made propositions, they had policies. We refused to go along with them.
Do you believe that that's your unwillingness to cooperate is why they didn't support you at the last general election?
I think when you look at the record, and people will have to look at the record, they will understand that News International pursued an incredibly aggressive agenda in the last year. And they're entitled, of course, to have their own views about the politics of this country. But I think when people look at the record, they will find evidence of how News International were distorting the news in a way that was designed to pursue a particular political cause. In other words, you can complain about how News International abused their power for commercial gain, and all these press awards that they were winning for stories that we now find out were stories that were not achieved in the most clean of ways is one thing. But of course the abuse of power or their power for political gain is something that's going to have to be looked at, and any inquiry that's going to be set up was going to have to look at how News International attempted to abuse political power for political gain.
We've talked about bank records.